Hey, Dr. Moore.
Hello, hey Joanne.
How are you?
Good, good. Just a tad little busy, but I just worked out for like 2 hours right now
Great.
on the phone.
On the phone.
Hello, hey Joanne.
Hi, Miss Doreen Ojeda. Can you hear us?
Mrs. Thornhill, are you able to hear us?
Oh, it helped if you turn the mic on. Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm going to turn this off now.
No problem.
Okay.
Am I supposed to see people? Because I don't.
No, not right now because we're presenting the agenda, so you won't be
Okay.
able to see the other participants.
Okay.
Is that the bell to get started? Round one.
Oh, don't say that.
Now we still have like 3 minutes, so. Okay. So, Mr. Flores, is that?
Okay. It is 3:30. It is 5:30, and I'd like to call the June 25th, 2020 board meeting to order. Joanne, would you like to do check and see everyone is here?
Sure, no problem. Mrs. Haro,
Yes.
Ms. Arigui,
Yes.
Mr. Fuentes,
Present.
Mrs. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Ibarra,
Present.
Ms. Doreen Ojeda,
Here.
Mr. Flores, he may be running a few minutes late.
Yeah,
Okay.
he didn't say anything to me, but I can text.
Okay. Thank you. And then just let Joanne know when he joins the meeting so she can put the time down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
No problem.
Dr. Miranda, we're moving on to 1.2. Would you please do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oops, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To
of
the flag
the United
of the
States
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda.
My pleasure.
Moving on to item 1.3, the adoption of the June 25th, 2020 agenda. There are no amendments to the agenda this evening. Do I have a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
make the
Sorry,
motion.
Ojeda.
Doring Ojeda,
I'll second.
and a second by Board
Arregui.
Member Araguin. I have a motion by Board Member Thoring Ojeda and a second by Board Member Araguin to adopt the agenda as recommended. Joanne, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ibarra,
Yes.
Mrs. Haro,
Yes?
Ms. Doreen Ojeda,
Yes.
Ms. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Fuentes,
Yes.
Ms. Arigui.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. On a motion by Board Member Thoring Ojeda and a second by Board Member Araguin, the board adopted the agenda as recommended on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to 2.0, our special presentations. Item 2.1 is the Board of Education self-evaluation. On June 9th, the Board of Education participated in a self-evaluation process designed to improve the quality for the benefit of the students of our district and our community. The self-evaluation was an excellent opportunity to have an open dialogue with fellow board members, to share our values, beliefs, and to hear other perspectives, all while working towards the goal of becoming a stronger Board of Education. The self-evaluation concentrated on areas which have a direct impact on the board's effectiveness. The assessment consisted of 7 categories of governance responsibilities with a total of 42 governance indicators. The forms were completed anonymously and submitted to the governance advisor for analysis. The 7 categories were board/superintendent relations, board meetings, board/community relations, board qualities, board in service, policy development, and goal setting and planning. The governance workshop assists in clarifying roles, increasing effectiveness, extend understanding, and improve the quality of governance. The board holds a united belief that all students can learn if provided the support and programs to meet their needs. That belief helps to shape the decisions of the board and leads to an effective and unified governance team, which emphasizes collaboration and mutual trust. I would like to thank my colleagues on the board for participating in the self-evaluation process and for their commitment to building a strong board that supports the vision and goals for student success. Thank you. Moving on to 3.0, our public comment. 3.1, our public comment items on the agenda and not on the agenda. I believe we do have some this evening. So Joanne, if you would please read them and set the timer.
The first public comment is from Salvador Reyes, a Colton resident. Dear CJUSD board members, I live in the city of Colton and my 3 children attend Colton schools. I have family and many friends that are proud to work and be a part of the CJUSD family. This COVID-19 situation has been hard on all of us as parents, community members, but especially our children. They have had the hardest time adjusting to being away from school while adapting to a new home learning environment. I understand you have a tough decision to make about the reopening of schools in the fall. I'm writing to ask that you please do not open the schools back up until the number of COVID-19 cases has significantly decreased. My children's health and the children and staff's health of CJUSD should not be taken lightly. We cannot expect for children to wear face masks all day long or have little or no interaction with their classmates because they have to social distance themselves from each other, or for parents who have pre-existing conditions have to worry about their child bringing COVID-19 home. Today, on Wednesday, June 24th, the number of new COVID-19 cases in California saw a massive jump of 69% in just 2 days. Governor Gavin Newsom has stated that he is prepared to revert back to more stringent restrictions if necessary. It would be heartbreaking to see any of our CJUSD family have to deal with COVID-19 because they were forced to go back to work and school too soon. I realize distance learning is not the ideal situation for all students, but for the safety and health for everyone, it has to be done. I believe my children's 3 teachers and many others stepped up to the plate in the spring and did their absolute best to continue teaching while learning new programs so their students would not fall behind. I know it wasn't easy for anyone, but we all worked together to make it happen so everyone could remain healthy. Please consider the health and well-being of everyone and continue with full-time distance learning in the fall. Thank you for your time, Sal Reyes. We also have another public comment. This is from Robert Trujillo, City of Colton resident. Hi, board members. I wish to speak in regards to resuming school for the 2021 calendar year. As a lifelong resident of Colton and product of CJUSD and family within the district, I am deeply concerned about the possibility of resuming on-ground classes in the middle of a global pandemic. As the virus is ever changing in this uncertain time and the statistics keep rising in regards to both cases and deaths, how are you, the board, going to ensure with the utmost certainty that the district will be able to keep each and every student safe? What protocols are in place to do so, and how will you measure these policies and procedures to ensure that these practices are safe and effective? These are questions that cannot be answered as of now. You, the board, only have one chance to get it right. These are lives you're dealing with this time, not just whether a textbook is going to be an effective tool for students. I implore you to make the right and only decision in this situation, and that is to continue distance learning until a significant improvement can be made in the reduction and control of this deadly and unrelenting virus. Do not put our children, our teachers, our parents, our community, and yourselves and your families in unnecessary and imminent danger by forcing everyone to go back into a germ-filled classroom. Don't risk public safety and blood on your hands because one death is too many. And what if that death comes from your own family? Can you guarantee that won't happen? Unfortunately, we've all learned that with this crisis, anything is possible. So again, I ask you to do the right thing and start the new school year off at a distance. And as things improve and remain steady, and you can answer the above questions with certainty. You have the opportunity to learn from the mistakes other districts have made in other countries to ensure that proper and proven protocols are in place and that alleviate the spread and contribute to the certain death of our society. I ask you to take your time and get it right the first time. Thank you, Robert Trujillo. I have a third public comment. This is from certificate employee Rita Aros. To the board. I urge the board to consider voting for the distance learning model upon return of school in August. Due to the lack of enforcement by the law and compliance of mask wearing amongst Southern California counties residents in recent weeks, the numbers have continued increasing, and every day the news announces a new record for COVID-19 cases. It would be a safety hazard to consider any other model besides DL right now. Thank you, Rita Aros, CJUSD certificated employee. We have another public comment. This is from a certificated staff member, Karen Willits. Board members and Dr. Miranda, thank you for swiftly and tirelessly working to support staff and students during distance learning. Although the transition was not easy, the resources, encouragement, and support you provided to us are greatly appreciated. This gives me great comfort as protocols are being put in place to begin our new school year. However, there is one area of great concern that raises my anxiety about returning to the classroom: general classroom cleanliness. Since team cleaning began, many of our classrooms simply are not clean. Specifically, vacuuming is rare and dusting. Wiping down walls and desks don't happen. In the name of safety, we can no longer tolerate dirty classrooms. As we move forward and the health and safety of staff and students are of utmost importance, I urge you to provide training for the night custodians on how to properly clean and sanitize a classroom. We have received the emails in the past with various excuses as to why our classrooms can't be clean. However, it is critical that proper cleaning is made a priority. This unprecedented time is an opportunity for maintenance to examine current practices and do better. In addition, it would give the teachers great peace of mind if we are provided with a cleaning schedule that outlined cleaning duties and the days we could expect the duties to be done. This would be similar to the way teachers have lesson objectives and daily schedules posted, so it is apparent what is happening in the room when someone walks in. A cleaning schedule would equitably promote the same accountability and transparency. Thank you for taking the time to hear my concern, and thank you for your continuous support. I look forward to a successful and safe new school year. Best regards, Karen Willits. And we have another public comment. This is from Camille Butts, Grand Terrace High School teacher. Good evening, board, superintendent, and community stakeholders. My name is Camille Butts, social science teacher at Grand Terrace High School and ACE executive board member, writing to thank you for prioritizing the health and safety of the CJUSD community in the strategic plan for returning to school. With many people pushing for a return to normal, I appreciate that you, the decision makers in CJUSD, value the health and safety of all above the pressure from a few. The unprecedented times of present will be looked back as a challenge, but returning to normal before it is safe will potentially cause a health crisis to befall CJUSD, and I am thankful you are not willing to put this community at risk. I look forward to continuing the Reopening Schools Task Force work to ensure all are supported upon our return to distance learning. Like many of you and many participating in this board meeting, I have been working seemingly nonstop since March 13th to plan for the future, to advocate for educators and students, and to transition to and embrace a new normal. The work shall continue. Thank you to the team that planned and conducted the Black Student Voice event. Per the student response, I look forward to having more events that allow CJUSD to hear from students. I look forward to increasing cultural competency and diversity in our curriculum, programs, trainings, and staffing. Thank you again, board, superintendent, and community stakeholders for your collective commitment to the health and well-being of the CJUSD community. I also look forward to seeing our commitment to equity continue to be prioritized. Thank you for your time. Camille Butts, Grand Terrace High School.
Thank you, Joanne. And that's the last one?
That is the last one.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 4.0, our administrative presentations. 4.1, our strategic plan for returning to school, our Student Services Division. Ms. Corden.
Madam President, I did want to make some opening comments and statements.
Okay.
Ms. Corden does the presentation. First of all, I just wanted to thank the task force that's comprised of over 70 people. And Ms. Corden is going to get into more, but just thank them for their efforts they've been engaged in this work since May, when I charged Ms. Cordon with the task of looking at the reopening of schools, and it's a gigantic endeavor, and I feel confident tonight that what we're presenting and what we've been toiling with for a while is something that I think really meets the needs of the community and is in the best interest of our students, our parents, our staff. And so I, again, thank you for the leadership of Ms. Cordon in leading this phenomenal group. And I know that they've been, again, the task force, many of them have served on many of the subcommittees and just spending a lot of time on this. And like Ms. Butt said, just working tirelessly since March 13th. So just wanted to open it up with that. So at this point, I will turn it over to Ms. Cordon.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Haro, board members, Superintendent Miranda, and members of the public. My name is Amanda Cordon, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, and I'm here on behalf of our task force members to present our strategic plan for returning to school. Next slide, please. As we began discussions on how we would reopen our schools in the fall, there were various considerations that we had to explore. We had to start by exploring and developing what our theory of action would look like. And I'd like to thank Dr. Mooney's academic infrastructure team for devising this theory, as it really set the tone moving forward and helped to guide us into these difficult decisions. As the conversation started taking place, it was very blatant that some themes were arising as far as what our priorities would be and how we would make these decisions. Our absolute highest priority was always the health, wellness, and safety of our students and staff. And as we progressed, we started talking more about how important it was that we were providing high quality and equitable learning experiences for all students, the need to maintain family and community engagement, provide ongoing support and expanded learning opportunities for teachers, reinstating effective district operations, and all of this while maintaining fiscal solvency for our district. Next slide. We made the decision early on to divide the task force into 4 critical areas in order to build a comprehensive plan. As you can see, those areas included academics and educational infrastructure, operations, health, wellness, and safety, and human resources. Next slide. This slide represents a timeline of critical events that have occurred since the March 13th date that we will never forget. The last day that students and teachers were physically on our campuses. The task force was assembled in early May, and we've spent most of the last month and a half in preparation for what's to come in the fall, while still maintaining and adhering to our dedicated start date of August 5th. Needless to say, the last 15 weeks have been nonstop. Next slide. So when it was time to roll up our sleeves and really start to map out what this plan would look like, we turned to various data points and sources of guidance to help us through these conversations. Usage of the California Department of Education guidance document, as well as the guidance from the California Department of Public Health, painted a picture of what schools should look like. While I'm sure the intent of these documents was to put districts at ease, I wouldn't be entirely honest if I didn't say that at times it actually caused more anxiety for our team. Nonetheless, there were critical elements that we were able to pull out to help us develop the plan. And of course, daily monitoring of the San Bernardino County dashboard, which reports positive cases of COVID, was utilized as well. Next slide. Our Educational Services Division also developed a survey which was distributed to teachers, parents, and students, with one of the questions asking what they would like to see our return to school look like. And while approximately 40% of parents and 50% of students wanted to come back in a full return model, we couldn't overlook the fact that a great majority wanted to stay in distance learning or were only comfortable coming back in a hybrid model. Next slide. At one of our final meetings, the core members of the task force took additional considerations and utilized them as discussion points. We asked ourselves the question, what is our ability to effectively prepare facilities by August 5th? What is our ability to provide professional development to teachers prior to the start of school on how to deliver instruction in alternative models? What is our ability to provide staff training on safety and hygiene measures prior to the start of school? What daycare options are available for parents who are fortunate enough to have returned to work? And what about transportation? Do we even have the capacity to transport our students while appropriately putting safety measures into place? And what about the social emotional support for students and staff? What does that look like? Next slide. Once we felt confident that we had enough information, we aligned the 4 stages of the California guidance with the 4 stages of the San Bernardino County guidance and decided it would be best if we took a similar staged approach to reopening our schools. As you can see, we are proposing a multiple stage approach. Stage 1 is considered the highest risk and basically represents the time from our March 13th shutdown to the end of school, in which learning was completely remote, grab-and-go lunches were provided at school sites, and district offices were only open on a limited basis. As we are preparing to begin the 2021 school year, it is the recommendation of our task force to begin the year in what we consider to be stage 2, meaning that we will continue providing instruction in a distance learning setting only. Although this may seem over-conservative to some, we want to share with the board that we have only come to this recommendation after careful thought and consideration, and the intent is not to remain in this stage for long. In fact, we are almost considering this a transitional period of sorts. As you can see, we have incorporated a stage 3A, at which time all staff will report to campus or district offices in order to prepare for the beginning of full implementation of stage 3. It is at this stage 3 point that we will provide instruction in a 50% hybrid model, while also still offering the full distance learning option for those families who are still not comfortable with sending their students to school. Once we're ready to move to stage 4, or from stage 3 to stage 4, you'll notice that initially stage 4A is a full return to school while still maintaining health and safety protocols, with 4B being a full return to school with limited to no modifications, similar to where we were prior to COVID-19. Now, with all of that being said, the team feels it is very important to communicate to the board that this is a very fluid situation we are living in. And while this is our recommendation today, as we all know, things can change at a moment's notice, and we will be prepared to address any changes as necessary. Next slide. Moving forward, the next few slides will reflect a simple overview of some of the planning considerations that we will address over the next few weeks. First, as they pertain to academics with regards to addressing new student learning and learning loss, providing supports for special student groups, and of course, professional development for teachers. Next slide. In addressing planning considerations from an operations perspective, the majority of their function at this time is really to prepare for our transition to stage 3, in which we have return of students and staff on our campuses. The highest emphasis, of course, is preparing and sanitizing all district facilities in an effort to maintain health and safety. Next. Planning considerations from the health, wellness, and safety perspective will include establishing health protocols and, most importantly, addressing the social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students, staff, and families. Next slide. And from the human resources perspective, appropriate staffing is going to be critical as we transition through these difficult models. Next. Now, I'm sure the question will arise, when will we be transitioning from stage to stage? And while I would love to be able to provide actual dates for these transitions, the reality is there are going to be key indicators and guidelines that we use in making these decisions. We will continue to look at positive COVID trends in cities within our district boundaries to include number of positive cases and hospitalizations. We will need to assure that sufficient PPE equipment is on hand. We will need to make sure that all school facilities are deemed properly sanitized and safe to occupy, and we will assure that we have a solid protocol in place which will allow us to effectively respond to any positive COVID exposure that we may have once staff and students do return to our campuses. Next. So where do we go from here? Of course, we look forward to feedback from the board as to our recommendation. We will continue to work in subcommittees within the critical areas for planning to open in a distance learning model on August 5th. We will assure that appropriate communication is provided of the staged approach to parents, students, and community. And we will also make sure to communicate any changes or revisions that may take place from now until then. Next. This final slide is just a representation of all the people who gave of their time in helping to develop this plan. And I'd like to personally extend a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of them, because it was no easy task. and each and every team member had an immeasurable contribution to this entire process. And next slide, Shane. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Corden. Okay, Board of Education, does anyone have questions? I'm sure there are many.
Board President Harlow, this is Board Member Flores.
Okay.
I've got a number of questions, but I'll since I'm sure we all do, I'll start with a few, and then I'll probably come back with a few more questions and comments. Thank you for the presentation. I didn't hear, though, a lot about what we're going to do to ensure academic rigor, particularly with the recommendation that we continue with distance learning. There were a lot of questions and concerns that came about when we transitioned to distance learning at the end of last academic year. We asked questions, quite frankly, about ensuring that our students are getting a quality education. There wasn't a lot of data that came back to guarantee that that rigor was there. Now, thankfully, the timing of the year being what it was, a lot of it was review and follow-up on material that had already been learned and taught, actually. This is different. We're talking about starting a year in a distance learning environment. And again, how are we ensuring that the quality of the education is going to be there?
So, Mr. Flores, if I can jump in, this is Ms. Peterson, and one of the things we'll be doing over the course of the next few weeks is pulling curriculum teams together to look at our course outlines for the year and basically reorganizing them to support a distance learning environment. This was not something we had obviously had time to do prior to this happening in March, happening so suddenly, and so. That's one of the areas that we will be looking at. We will be instituting grading criteria as well as taking attendance. And so there's also developing assessment, pre-assessment that we can give when students return to find the learning gaps, as well as assessments throughout the year, as well as looking at different ways that we can implement supports or use supports for those students that are either coming back with learning gaps or those that may have them moving forward. And so those are a few ways of looking at the rigor, as well as that there's requirements from the state for instructional minutes, changes in requirements for that, a requirement for live teaching as well. And so those are things that we will be planning for as we go into next year, as we set out the schedules and work with our teachers and do professional development with them.
And I appreciate that, but I'm going to be honest here. In order for distance learning to work, there's two sides to that equation. We can do everything on our end, but if the parents aren't doing what they need to do on their end, the children aren't going to learn. And you shared with us some anecdotal data that we had as many as 50% of our kids at the middle school level weren't even logging in. If they don't log in, if they don't participate, if they don't have the support network at home, they're not gonna participate and they're not gonna learn. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not comfortable right now at this juncture myself, I'm only speaking for myself, getting to a distance learning environment when I saw data that showed anywhere from 20 to 30% of elementary students and 50% of middle school students didn't even bother to log in once over the entire time that we were doing distance learning. Cannot tell me that that kid was learning or participating or growing. And this is something that is so important because, as Board Member Thorne-Ojeda points out many times, they don't get this time back. All right, there's always the next year for us, but for these students, they don't get that time back. So I have a lot of concerns about the ability to ensure that our kids are going to stay engaged, that they're going to be able to log in, that they have the support at home. And again, it's because it requires so much more on the family than a traditional learning environment. That's my concern. So I'll leave it at that. I do have other questions, but I know board members have questions too, so I'll chime in.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I'd like to also just backtrack and contribute to what Dr. Peterson was saying. a lot of the conversations we had with our ed services, student services planning teams was that, the difference with this being that there is an accountability piece. There was a no hold harmless clause for our students last year. They knew that. Some self-admittedly didn't check in because they knew it wouldn't affect their grade. The trailer bill language, as we're navigating through it, does require that there's a plan in place for attendance and engagement outreach. So we will have to put that plan in place moving forward if we continue in distance learning. And we do have to keep weekly engagement records for students as well as part of that language.
Okay, this is Mrs. Saradin. Do you anticipate the percentage of students, especially at the high school level, to increase, to have more, the majority or all of our students log on?
Personally, I do. Like I said, having a high school student at home myself, there were a lot of arguments about what has to be done and doesn't have to be done because his grades were quote unquote locked in. And so really sending the message that they are starting to generate their grades from day one, I think is going to make a big difference. There's also some things that we have to look at while we would like to transition out of distance learning soon. The fact of the matter is we could stay long, in distance learning longer than we anticipate, and we have to account for that. And they are starting to disseminate language with some relief as far as things like PE credits not having to be adhered to, PE requirements not having to be adhered to. So there's a chance that we might have to look at graduation requirements again, especially for our seniors. But I do really anticipate to see a big increase in the participation rate of our seniors and high school students in general.
Okay, Ms. Corden, also, how is there a plan in place? Let's say August 5th is the first day of school. Is there a plan in place where maybe a day, the first day, the attendance is going to be monitored, and then 3 days later it will be monitored to see if everybody's showing up? Is there a plan in place to reach out to those students that have not logged on or have not participated?
Absolutely. To be honest, we do that when we're full in session anyway. We reach out to students that aren't showing up to make sure that they're, one, still in our district, and two, that they are getting any supports that they need to be able to attend school. So absolutely, we will be reaching out to students that aren't reporting the first few days of school, especially.
Okay, very good. And I do have one more question. How and who is going to be monitoring the situation, the fluid situation that we currently have? Let's say that things change. How are we going to monitor? And also, how are we going to be communicating these situations to our community and our parents?
So are you talking about as we're transitioning between stages?
That, but also the communication that is coming to us from the state and the county, from the data of positive cases. Let's say that there's a huge increase, or on the opposite, maybe there's been a dramatic decrease. Is there someone monitoring that and then rolling out this information to the parents?
Yes, absolutely. Myself and John Sachs are among two in our district that look at it daily. San Bernardino County has a live dashboard of active cases, and it even breaks it down by region. And then the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools holds regular meeting with the superintendents, which Frank allows me to attend a lot of times, and they disseminate information almost on a daily basis as well. So every single day those cases are looked at, and I can tell you, we were just talking about 2 days ago, the sudden spike in positive cases. It went up to like 639 or something for a one-day count. And so we were really concerned about that. I think of most concern to us right now is seeing the upward trend not going down, or not even making any indication that it's going in a downward trend. And so that drove a lot of our decision making. But as we continue with that, and if we're even remotely close to considering moving stages, definitely using our communications department to blast out information on all of our available media resources, social media, phone calls, emails, the same way that we normally communicate our information, putting it on websites and those kinds of means of communication.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ms. Ladigan, I just want to add really quick, and Amanda did mention this on our website. We do have a COVID-19 resource page for our community that we established right away. So those continually get updated. And again, we send out information via social media. I've been on Instagram posting videos, tweeting out information. We're a big social media district. But also from my office, I do send out communications out to the community in forms of letters. We also send out robocalls or through phone calls and things like that to update the community consistently. So.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, I do have one last question. What are we doing about our most vulnerable students, which are the homeless, the special ed, our English learners, our foster students, those groups of students that are at risk, and we need to make sure that their needs are met.
So I can tell you there is language in the trailer bill about that as well, but a lot of our discussion today really focused on especially the EL and special ed students. In fact, even possibly considering when we return to a hybrid, bringing them back possibly all of the days instead of the alternative days, especially the SDC mod severe students who are in small class sizes anyway. There's a lot of discussion on what support looks like when when we're in a distance learning setting from the beginning, and really providing not only the professional development for the teachers, but for the support staff as well, to be able to provide some of those supports while we're in distance learning. As far as homeless and foster, Carla Viramontes in our student services office has done a phenomenal job when we were shut down and reaching out. We put a lot of information out to teachers because they're in these virtual classrooms with the students. They're our first point of contact. And so there were days that we physically delivered food, clothing, and anything. We've even delivered Chromebooks to houses of families in need. And then with our mental health program, this past year, we took on social work interns, and they did a lot of case management. So they were performing wraparound services with families, even in the distance learning setting.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Frankie Barra, and if I could have the floor, please. First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking Amanda and her staff for the report, and you could tell that there was a lot of hours and work put into it. As far as the distant learning aspect, I really feel that it's a good way to start the school year. And my rationale is the fact that it's our responsibility as the Board of Education and a school district to make sure that all our students and our community are safe as we start proceeding forward. And because of all the reports that are coming to us of the spiking of more COVID-19, I could really see where there's going to be a lot of parents who are going to be very, very concerned about sending their students to school. With that being said, I feel that the plan to open up with distant learning is, I think it's imperative. It's something I think that we as a district should follow through on. We need to get our students going as far as education, but we also need to give ourselves as a district opportunity to take a look to see if the reports of COVID-19 starts to subside or increase. And I think that this opportunity of starting off as distant learning will give us that opportunity in the next few weeks or months to be able to determine how safe it's going to be for our students and our staff to return under, even if it's a hybrid condition or full traditional condition. So I take my hat off to you, Amanda, and to Frank, because I talked with Dr. Miranda earlier on making the recommendation for us to head in that direction, because once again, I feel that we have a utmost responsibility to make sure that all our students are safe at the outset, that the parents feel comfortable sending their students to school, but we need to start engaging in their education as soon as we possibly can. As far as the special ed students, I think Amanda kind of answered my question on that one. I think that their parents will need the communication, and I'm hoping that we as a district will give them the communication as far as how we're going to approach their education in the next few months. And I think that that's going to be an important factor as we move forward. And also taking a look at what our other districts, surrounding districts, how they're handling their particular special educational groups in their individual districts as well. As we move forward, I think that it's going to be important for us to keep the open lines of communication, and I like seeing that in your report. And Frank talking about the variety of different ways that we could reach out. And I know that we as board members, we will also be getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of visits from people who are going to be concerned about reopening and how we're going to do it. And I appreciate that Frank's office is keeping us abreasted with every decision that's going to be made and on the behalf of everybody. So I thank you for that as well. One of the questions that also comes to mind too is the fact that preparation for our classrooms. I do have a concern here, and I talked with Dr. Miranda earlier about this, is the fact that do we as a district have enough custodians to properly take care of our classrooms as we start prepare to open up? Now, I know that we have some time, but it may be something that we're going to have to take a look at. The report that I saw today tells us how we're going to do it, and we still need to take a look at who's going to be doing what. I really think that we need to figure out who's going to be responsible for regular maintenance, cleaning, and every aspect of us being able to open up safely. So I'm hoping that somewhere along the line, as the Board of Education, we really need to get that information so that we're familiar with how and who we're going to ask to do what as far as keeping the classrooms clean. Are we going to have plenty of supplies? Are we going to be the ones to supply those supplies, etc.? Because it's going to be important for us once again, and I can't say it strongly enough, is that we need to make sure that whatever we do, we need to do it as safe and as responsible as we possibly can for everyone that's involved. So, and one last thing too, and I'm just thinking, because I know that Dan had this concern, and I think it's important to get the word out as far as making sure that as we start off with our distant learning, that our students and our parents know every aspect of what is expected of them, so that we can make sure that they participate and they know how to participate, but they also know that their grade is going to depend on their participation. So we need to get that word out as soon as we possibly can, I believe, so that the parents can start preparing. We might have to, send out a message so that the parents could talk to their their students, their children, so that they as individuals can prepare as well for what's going to be expected of them in order for them to progress through each and every class that they're going to be taking. And as far as the rigor, I mean, I think that as time goes on and the teachers start to implement the regular curriculum via distant learning, that I'm hoping that the rigor will come along with that, and that everyone will participate if we can get them the information to do so. So once again, I just want to thank everyone, and of course I have some other questions, but I could wait up on that, give everybody else an opportunity to share and ask their questions as well. So thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Ibarra. Any other board members have any questions or comments?
Yes, Board President.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Sandoval.
Go ahead, Ms. Sandoval.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I just had some concerns, and this is like personal for myself. When I was in the long distance learning with my kids, one of my daughters, they will only gain once a week because that's how the teacher was doing it. The other ones, they were doing it Monday to Friday. So personal, I'm the same way as Dan's concerns. How are kids gonna be learning when they're not logged in, or they only logged in once a week? I also have neighbors, which it's an older lady, and she's a grandma, and the kids are there, parents at work, and I will have to send my kids over to help their kids because eventually they're not used to the computer, the technology, how to log in. They have issues, they have concerns, and even homework. With the homework, it's really hard sometimes, even for the kids. And as parents or grandparents, it's some of them, it's going to be hard for them to also explain their own kids or grandkids how to do the work. So those are my only concerns. How are they going to work with the kids during the long distance learning? I do also want the kids safe. So I'm agreeing with the long distance learning, but I am really concerned about how are kids going to learn when they have issues at home. And also internet. I'll give an example. In my house, 3 days straight, I've been having buffering and problems with my internet. So when they have to be logged in and they also have issues with the login, they're also going to step back a little bit and miss a lot of information with the teachers. So that's just my concerns about, I want kids to be on task, but there's also problems with parents. I know they're at work or kids are with grandparents. So it's going to be hard for them to have that learning. And that'll be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sandoval.
Ms. Hara, I do want to make a comment, just
Yes.
really quick. The budget bill that was passed, AB 77, requires, and Dr. Peterson mentioned this, the 4 hours of instruction that students have to be with somebody. So they recognize that regarding the loss of learning for our students. So now they're mandating that we implement certain criteria, regardless if it's distance learning or a hybrid model. And so we recognize this, and I think we learned a lot of lessons through this distance learning environment that we can improve on to ensure that we know that there was issues with connectivity, and that's an equity issue. So we have to address those and work with our partners. And so we're in the process of that. We recognize that we got to do better of connecting with these students, and it's a mandate at this point. So I just want to ensure the board that these are big considerations for us. And again, the goal is to get us to transition to a hybrid as soon as possible. So then at some point, hopefully to a full return. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda. I believe it was Board Member Fuentes.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Haro. Just wanted to first of all comment on the presentation. It was great. It's self-explanatory. I understand the concerns Mr. Flores and Ms. Sandoval has, and some of the concerns the other board members have. I think what happened, as we look at the numbers, is about 50% of the kids didn't log in, I think, in the middle school. We kind of gave them some free reign there when we told them that we would look at 2 grades, see what grade was the best one, and that's the one they would use. And a lot of them said, you know, I got an A last time in my algebra class, so I'm just going to kind of kick back and not go in there. And I think that was, we shouldn't have put that out there too soon, but we did. And I understand the accountability. There has to be accountability. We're doing everything we can as a board, as a district, as we're doing everything. But I think the accountability needs to come from our students also. And the accountability needs to come from whoever is there at home with them. It could be grandma, grandpa, whoever. We have phones, we have phone numbers, we have emails, we have things available for grandma, grandpa, dad, mom, Theo, whoever, available for them if they need help. We are available if they need any help. The plan that's been presented today is a great plan. I'm all for it. I understand the concerns that everyone has. I think what we need to do, if we need to go to the point where we need to pass out packets again, maybe during the distribution of lunches and breakfast, maybe that's an option. Maybe hold them accountable that way, give them a hard copy, you know, so there's no excuse that you didn't do your work, and maybe drop off the hard copy when they drop off, when they pick up lunch the next day or on Friday. But find a way for us to make sure that these our students, and they're great kids. All of our kids are great. We're doing everything that needs to be done, but we need to hold them accountable. And I understand that the accountability. I understand the networks sometimes go down. My network went down today. I was buffering for a couple of hours. I'm actually using my hotspot right now off my cell phone to be able to be on the meeting this evening. But things like that do happen. But if there's a way we can maybe give them a hard copy, a packet, or something like we did at the beginning when this all started, there's an option to do that. I know it's going to cost a lot of money or things like that, but we want to make sure that our students are given the opportunity to learn. You know, this is, like we've said many times, we're building the plane as we're flying it. We're building the plane as we're flying it. We're still learning. Many of our kids have never gone through this. None of us have ever gone through this, and we're still learning. There's a learning curve here. We made a mistake maybe at the end of the year. We might have made a mistake by telling them you had an option. You know, your grade's going to be this or that. And a lot of kids kind of dropped the ball because they didn't know. Mom and dad dropped the ball probably. But we need to move forward now. Look at what we have present. Try to do our best this time and move on. I understand the concerns about accountability, rigor, making sure everybody gets everything that is needed. But I think what we have in place right now, and that her team and all those people on that last page there have done, is an awesome job. I think we need to move on. This is my opinion. We need to move on. We need to do our best and learn from our mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Fuentes. Board Member Throwing Ojeda, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll begin with thanking Mrs. Corden and all the members of the committee as they looked at all the things that they've looked at, considered, come up with. It's obvious that there's been nonstop work, as Mrs. Corden said, since March 13th. We're in brand new territory, and I just am actually overjoyed with the results that we've had up to this point. I do have a couple of the things that I did have concern on whether or not we had a plan for students who were not participating in distance learning, and those have been answered. I do have one that was not, or at least I didn't hear it or remember. We have data on the number of students participating, but do we have data on the reasons besides they just didn't do it? We talked about Dr. Miranda said we were going to be addressing the connectivity part of that. Are there other reasons that we know about that we need to address? And again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because I know you're doing an amazing job. But these are just some things that I'm thinking about because as Mr. Flores said, there's no do-overs, and our kids, we have to try and do everything we can to provide instruction each and every day to our kids. And I know we're working hard as a district to make that happen. I'm just wondering if there's anything that we don't know a reason for something that we could possibly find that would help even one or two kids that really need more support from us than we are providing because we don't know about it. When we talk about communicating with parents, it was said that we have phone numbers, emails, and whatnot. Well, from my past, I know that isn't always true. Phone numbers change on a regular basis. Parents are not always easy to find, and I'm wondering if we have a way of making sure that we are getting to all of our families. When phone messages go out, are we sending out just district messages or schools sending them out as well? Because the closer we get to a personal connection, the more we're probably going to get a response from families. Some people who are not internet savvy probably still need to have letters, or I think teacher phone calls are the very best support that a family can have, because if a teacher calls, that normally gets parents' attention. I think we've all been hit in the world with this pandemic, and it's very hard even for parents as well. And the state of emotions is playing a big part in this, I would assume, as well. But I think parents need to really understand, and I know that you're finding ways, and if we can think of more ways, that would be great, to get parents to take on that responsibility, because if their kids miss a year of instruction, they already missed a lot last year, but missing more instruction is going to be detrimental to them in the years to come, because they're not learning what they need this year to move to the next level next year. One of the questions that I thought about with foster home, I don't know if our foster home kids were all completing their distance learning last year, but I would think that we could work with our social service agencies and let foster parents know that this is a requirement that would be dependent on them remaining foster parents if the kids don't participate. Maybe we could get some social services in to find out about that if we have families in that situation. Mrs. Corridan, I was really pleased about the attendance verification, and I'm wondering, are we going to take it to the level of SART even with those kids who don't, to let parents know that they have to do this. You have to go to school, whether you want to or not, because that school attendance review board is alive and well, and there will be action taken if they're not participating. And I think there'll be some families that we probably will have to do that with. So thank you for putting that in there as a part of the process. I think those are the only things. I just appreciate very much what all of you have done, and we have there's going to be a lot more bumps on the road along the way. And I, as a board member, applaud all the work that's been done and all the efforts, and thank you for giving your all to the kids, because I know that we all think of all of our children as all of our kids. So thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Thornhill Ojeda. Well, when you go last, a lot of things have already been said or asked, but the one question I have, and I've been contacted by several teachers asking the question, is with they are in favor, most of them are in favor of beginning the school year in a distance learning model. They feel it's the safe thing to do for students and for staff. Their question is whether or not some of them would like to come back and teach, do the distance learning, but teach from their classroom, because they feel that some of the classes that are taught, they need what's available in their classroom. They can't take their whole classroom home with them, and certain things that they need to teach. And so I'm wondering if that would be an option to certain teachers.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that is one of the goals in that transitional 3A phase, is to have the adults on campus with the teachers teaching from their classrooms. Consider bringing them back prior to that, but absolutely not until we can deem that their classrooms are completely sanitized and safe for them to return.
Okay, so it's possible that they may start completely distance, but then they can transition. Now, would they be able to transition to teaching in their classroom before we actually move to the next phase then?
Yes, all the phase 3A only includes staff on campus. So we're shooting for 1 to 2 weeks before we transition to full stage 3, where we're starting hybrid and bringing kids back on. We're shooting for a 1 to 2 week window where adults will come on campus and work from their offices or their classrooms right before the kids start to come onto campus.
Okay,
so,
but I don't think that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about right before
right.
kids come on campus. They're talking about during this period of distance learning. And I understand the class, and I'm not talking every teacher. I'm just talking about certain ones who wish to come back, if they like, put that in that request with their principal, their site principal, if they want to be able to come back and teach those 4 hours or whatever from their classroom, because they need whatever it is available. As long as their classroom has already been sanitized and clean, would they have that option to be able to do that?
Correct. It's easy for me to make that decision. I do know we have a team, Mrs. Munsterman and Mr. Jensen are working on a return plan for staff members district-wide. And so when they come to the terms of what that looks like, I think we can have a better answer to that question. I don't think anybody's opposed to a teacher coming back and teaching from their classroom. It completely makes sense, but only if it's safe.
Okay, all right, and then you could, and yeah, of course, I know that that you'll keep us apprised of each of these steps and where we are in the process. Amanda, last thing I want to do is just say thank you to all of the members of your committee and to you for leading them. It was quite an amount of people when you presented that slide who participated. I was happy to see that our bargaining units were well represented. Our health and safety was well represented. So so that the community and all of our staff can understand that this wasn't just a district decision to do this. This was a decision made by a large group, a large representation of them. So I just want to thank them and thank you for that.
Board Member Haro, can I apologize? Can I have, you mind if I?
Yes, of course, Board Member Flores.
And again, obviously I appreciate the comments, the feedback from everyone. I am passionate about this issue though, because I see it in my own community, in my neighborhood. So there's one issue though that we haven't really discussed that is going to make it very different in August than last March. Last March, the state had a shutdown order that put most people at home. They didn't have to go to work and they could be home, help facilitate their students' education. People are back to work. And our community is a working community. I know we're talking about holding our kids and parents accountable, but how do you hold a parent accountable if they have to go to work? Both parents go to work. They're not home to take care of the kids. We're creating childcare issues. We're talking about holding the kids accountable. How do you hold a fourth grader accountable if he's left alone at home because mom and dad have to work? And I understand that we have tools and there's times when we have to pursue SARB and truancy, but we're just coming off a discussion on equity. We're going to sick more draconian measures after kids because of circumstances that are outside of their control. That's my heartburn and concern here. I want the kids to be safe. I want our staff to be safe. I want our parents to be safe. But the reality is the ones who will be most negatively impacted by this, let's be honest, it's going to be the vulnerable kids that we talk about. It's working families, it's low-income students that don't have the luxury. It is a luxury to be able to stay home with your kid, get on a laptop, have access to the internet uninterrupted, and participate. I know it because I did it with 2 children, my wife and I, together, and it was hard. And we're fairly educated, fairly adept at this. It's not going to impact everybody equitably. That's my point at the end of the day. And we better be prepared for those consequences, because those who will be hurt, because I do think we will have kids that will fall through the cracks. It's going to be those that we talk about oftentimes protecting the most. So the last question I have, Dr. Miranda, is I know that this is a presentation. You're looking for board feedback, but is this the end? Will there be another presentation? Are you looking for direction? Will this ultimately, in my opinion, the decision here is ultimately the board's decision as the elected body for this district. I'd like to see it come to a vote. Whether we do that now or whether we put it on the agenda for action item, because it's not on the agenda today for an action item. I think we need to be accountable, and again, I would like to see it come for a vote.
Board Member Flores, when we were done with discussion, once everybody was done with discussion, I was going to ask for a consensus for the board, for the district to move forward with the plan to continue to look towards opening schools, but as a start to the school year, to start with distance learning.
And Ms. Haro, if I can add that we are preparing plans for a hybrid model too. So we're preparing 2 plans, and so that way we're prepared for the transition. And again, we're saying a transition because we want to stay as low as time as possible, as data dictates, in that distance learning environment, because of what Mr. Flores has brought up is really certainly a concern for all of us. And so it's not an action item and we're asking for board direction consensus, and then to bring it back for approval at the next board meeting.
Okay. And I think the hybrid idea is also, even when we go back, it's not going to be it's going to be a hybrid version where parents who don't feel comfortable sending them back will be able to still continue with distance learning to an extent. And so I think that's a good thing to let people know that because we're not going to force students to come back to the classroom, but that option will be available.
And that's correct. And that we have students that have high medical needs, and so we are going to provide that option, and we prefer to provide options to our parents in that respect, even when we do transition to the hybrid. And so, and even the hybrid model does call for, the distance learning to be part of that, because our hybrid model is 50% the capacity, AA and then BB group. So it is going to be a hybrid with distance and in-person instruction. And we get to that point as fast as possible. I want to just say that based on what the data is telling us, and that's our goal. We need kids in classrooms. We need them there. They need to be back at some point. That's our goal and our hope.
Yes, we want them there. We need them there, but the main goal is safety. It's the safety of our students as well. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Do I have a consensus for the district to proceed with the planning of the distance learning for the beginning of the school year, with the direction to continue to meet, the team to meet, and to plan for a return back to school? Do I have a consensus?
Yes, for me.
Consent.
Yes,
Yeah.
for Frank.
Yes, for Adeline.
Yes, Israel Fuentes.
It's a no for me. I mean, obviously, I want the team to continue to work and bring back information. But at this juncture, I'm not personally supportive of the starting off at the distance learning. I'd like to see a hybrid, but I understand, and I certainly respect the majority of the board's decision to move forward.
Okay. Board Member Sandoval?
Yes, only because of the safety of our kids, but I still have a lot of concerns.
Mhm. I know we all have concerns, but I think I'm also a yes. I believe that this is the right thing to do for our students and staff at this time. So I thank my colleagues for all of their input. I'm sure Amanda was writing furious notes to bring back to her committee if they're not already on there, some of them listening. So thank you again, Amanda and your team, immensely for all of the input. And we look forward to your next presentation where we are at that time. So we are going to move on to 5.0, our action session action items. We have action items 5.1 through action item 5.29. We have to vote on 5.7 separately. Are there any others that anyone would like to be pulled to be considered separate? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve action items 5.1 through 5.29 with the exception of 5.7?
So moved, Israel
Dan
Fuentes.
Oh, second then, Dan Flores.
Thank you. I have a motion by Board Member Fuentes and a second by Board Member Flores to approve action items 5.1 through 5.29 with the exception of 5.7 as presented. All those in favor? Joanne, a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mrs. Haro?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Ms. Doreen Ojeda?
Yes.
Ms. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Fuentes?
Yes.
Ms. Adeline?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. On a motion by Board Member Fuentes and a second by Board Member Flores and carried on a 7-0 vote, the board approved action items 5.1 through 5.29 with the exception of 5.7. Action item 5.7, I need a motion and a second, and you also need to select the candidate when you make your motion. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to nominate Barbara Flores.
Okay.
I second that motion, Barbara Flores.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Araguin and a second by Board Member Fuentes to approve action item 5.7 and select Barbara Flores for the 2020 CSBA Delegate Assembly Runoff Election, Region 16B. Roll call vote?
Mr. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mrs. Haro?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Doreen Ojeda?
Yes.
Ms. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Fuentes?
Yes.
Ms. Adeline?
Yes.
Thank you.
On a motion by Board Member Araguin and a second by Board Member Fuentes and carried on a 7-0 vote, the board approved action item 5.7 and selected the candidate Barbara Flores for the 2020 CSBA Delegate Assembly Runoff Election, Region 16B. Moving on to 6.0, our administrative reports. Item 6.1, does anyone have any questions on approved disbursements? Moving on to item 6.2, approve change order for the Colton High School Girls Locker Room Roof Replacement Project per board resolution number 20-42. Are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on to 6.3, our facilities update. No facilities update tonight. Item 6.4, our budget updates. Assistant Superintendent Jensen, please.
Well, good evening, members of the board, President Haro, Superintendent Miranda, and our virtual audience. I'm Rick Jensen, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services for the district, and I'm presenting one of my first budget updates. And this will be a monthly report that I'll do from now on. So today's budget update is going to be centered on the legislature's version of the budget that they have presented and the budget deal that came as a result of negotiations with the governor. We'll go to the next slide. So we are looking at a comparison between what the governor presented in his May revision and what the legislature presented in their version of the budget. And as you know, the Assembly and the Senate work separately on their versions of the budget, and then they together come up with a compromise bill. So Senate Bill 74 and Assembly Bill 77 were the results of that negotiation. So as we can see here, the different versions of the budget, there are some similarities and some differences. At the top, the COLA was funded by both at 2.31%. However, the governor's May revision included a 10% reduction, resulting in a 7.92% overall reduction to the budget. However, the legislature included the COLA, but said no reductions. So that would be an increase from this year to next year overall. The governor's budget assumes that there will be no federal help, and if there is federal dollars that come, then some of the reductions will be taken away. On the legislature side, they are hoping on the federal dollars helping out, and if they don't, then we'll see an increase in deferrals. So as we were discussing the last for the budget includes some deferrals from June 2020 to July 2020 of next year. And also the governor included additional $5.3 billion in deferrals for the months of April, May, and June from 2021 to 21-22. On the legislature's version, they mirror pretty much what the governor suggested for deferrals. But in the case that federal dollars do not materialize, there were no cuts to the LCFF. However, an additional $5 billion in deferrals would be added in that case. There's a little bit of a difference between the governor's plan for special ed and the legislature. Same amount of money, it's just how it's split out. So currently it's about $557 on average throughout the state that districts receive for special ed per student, and that would grow to $645. It's about a 15% increase per student. The legislature takes about $100 million and sets it aside for low incidence, which lowers that per student amount to about $625. In addition, additional CARES Act and GEAR funding was being set aside by the governor for learning loss mitigation. And it's a good hefty amount because he's showing about $735 per student. And that would account for almost $15 million for the district if that went through. And that would be for districts that receive concentration grants, which we do. The legislature's plan is let's prorate that across all districts that receive supplemental concentration grants. And so that brought it down to about $500 per student, or about $10 million for the district. Let's go to the next slide. There we go. So now we have reached a budget deal as of June 22nd. So the compromise is the COLA would not be funded after all. according to what the governor had suggested in the May revise. But neither is the 10% reduction given as well. So that's a good news. That is good news for districts. So that means flat funding from 1920 to 2021. This, now, of course, it assumes that the HEROES Act would pass the Senate, and it has not done that yet. And it would have to pass sometime in September or deferrals to be reduced. So here's the compromise plan for deferrals. So the $1.9 billion from June to July this year to next year is the same as the governor's proposal and the legislature. The $9.19 billion includes not only April, May, and June, but also February and March. So the last 5 months of the year, those state aid appointments would be given back to the district in the next year in July, August, September, October, and November. If we do receive the HEROES Act funding, or if I should say the state receives it, they will rescind about half of those deferrals next year. The special ed proposal is the same as the legislature's proposal. And the learning loss mitigation funds was somewhat a compromise between the governor and the legislature, meeting in the middle at about $600 per student. And that would account for about $13 million for the district. Next slide, please. So more on this learning loss mitigation funding. There's 3 sources of funding that is proposed. And I just mentioned one of those. That was the supplemental concentration grant funding at $600 per student. We also would receive about $1,900 per student for our students with disabilities. That's a little over $5 million. $3.65 million for our LCFF entitlement, around $165 per ADA. And this money is supposed to be spent on 4 different areas: to help with student learning supports, the general measures that extend instructional time for students, providing additional core academic support for students who need it, and providing integral services that support teaching and learning, so such as student staff technology needs, mental health services, staff professional development, and student nutrition. And this is contingent upon the adoption of a learning continuity and attendance plan. Next slide, please. So technically no LCAP next year. Instead, we developed this learning continuity and attendance plan. Funny how that still has the same acronym as LCAP. It could get confusing if we start talking about next year's LCAP, because they will be talking about this learning continuity and attendance plan. This will be adopted by September 30th of this next year. And the Superintendent of Public Instruction is working on the template, which should be due out August 1st. We still have the budget overview for parents that normally accompanies the LCAP, and that would be required to be adopted the same time the LCAP was supposed to be adopted, December 15th. And now we don't have the original LCAP to worry about this next year. The BOP is still required. There is no waiver for the 180-day minimum instructional day requirement, but we may use distance learning, in-person school days, and the time value of assignments, whatever that means yet. We have yet to find out to meet this requirement. Our ADA for 1920 will be held harmless for next year for the ADA that was reported before the pandemic caused the closure of schools. The STRS employer rate is frozen at this year's levels, and the certificated summer layoff as part of the budget deal is closed. There will be no summer layoffs for teachers. As well, no classified layoffs will be allowed in the budget deal for custodial, food services, and transportation services. The intent language in AB 77 also requests that districts evaluate the presence of peace officers on campuses and consider alternative options for pupil safety. And so what's next on the agenda? The budget compromise was reached on June 22nd. The necessary changes were made to the budget bills and given back to the governor. They are revised and must be made available for review 3 days before the legislature can re-vote on it. As soon as the legislature votes tomorrow is when it is scheduled, then the governor can sign, veto, or do a line item veto on that budget bill. And we expect him to sign it on time by June 30th. Then the district has about 45 days to provide a report to the board and public detailing the impact of the signed budget act on the district's adopted budget, which tonight, basically, I showed you most of that impact through the learning loss mitigation and how the COLA and the law, and we don't have the 10% reduction anymore. So how that looks at for the district, I will prepare a more in-depth report on that by the first meeting in August. So at this time, if there's any questions or comments from the board, I'd be happy to take those now.
Rick, can I make a comment? If I can jump in just really quick. Certainly, the good news compared to what the May revise was projected to be. So I as the former CBO and then toiling around the numbers when we got the May revise, and now as the budget and no cuts to the LCFF and holding us harmless. Those are really good things for districts and especially in this environment. I did want to make a comment on the intent language of the peace officers. There's more information coming out on that, but it's asking districts to examine, look at, evaluate. I think the term says of SROs, secure police on campuses. I'll just say that, and I've spoken to Mayor Navarro about this recently, and we've had great relationships with our Colton Police Department, our sheriffs. They've provided services, and they are funded out of the LCAP. It's been a priority for the district, and so it's something that I know that our board has always asked us to keep and work with them. And I'll just say this, that they serve as role models to our, not only our Latino, but also our Black students. And I just say that I want to give kudos to the Colton, all our SROs that are out there who service our district. They've done incredible jobs. They've gone above and beyond their service, and I'll just mention the virtual drive-throughs. They actually provided more support out there than what we asked. And so I just want to mention that if we're going to examine the relationship or evaluate them, I just want to ensure that they've done an incredible job of service. And anyway, so it's a hot topic out there, but it is in the trailer language. And I believe there's more to come, but it's a good budget, a lot better than what was proposed at the May revise. Still question marks, but it puts us in a position to address the learning loss and to deal with the connectivity piece, because that's huge for our district. And we are a one-to-one district, so it's not really a question of devices or access to devices for our students, but it is a question of connectivity. So we can use some of this money to look at that, to ensure that all our students have access to the internet. And you talk about the digital divide, that's probably the biggest piece there. So I wanted to throw that out there and just show the board that, we were very anxious, but we can breathe a little bit more with sigh of relief in terms of what the compromise is. There's still question marks, but overall, I think we're happy with the advocacy that happened with all the groups, CSBA, AXA, our CTA, all those folks that lobbied the legislature. They listened up in Sacramento and came to an agreement of something. And instead of devastating cuts, they put something together that I think we can move forward with. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Are there any questions from the board of Mr.
This is Frank. I do have a
Yes.
question. Thank you, Pat. Um, in preparation for the deferrals that you had mentioned in your report, Mr. Jensen, what do we need to do as a district at that point in time, and what will we be doing to prepare for those deferrals?
Well, the first step is to prepare a new cash flow report, a projection that shows how the money will come in next year and how it will be deferred at the end of the year to the following year. I think that's going to be a critical piece to estimate if any borrowing will be done. We've already brought to the board some resolutions that allow us to borrow from the county office and also to borrow internally through our funds. Some of the funds are available for borrowing and some are not, like we cannot borrow from our bond funds. So those will be off limits. At this point, what we presented to the board for an adopted budget with the April, May, and June deferrals, we were able to make it to the end of the year without any borrowings. Another option too, I didn't mention, is a tax revenue and anticipation note. Of course, that type of borrowing has interest charges involved. So that would be the last step I would take. So then we look at the new cash flow and determine if we show any projected negatives plus a cushion to make sure we have enough money on hand to make payroll and any estimated commercial warrant payments at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jensen. Just one more question. And I'm sure that this is a question of curiosity for a lot of people. As you mentioned, I believe it was AB 77, and that was put into the budget. Have we, as a district, or have you heard how are we going to be asked by the state to monitor our SROs and in any particular fashion, or is it going to be left up to us to provide a report? Any specific things that we need to put together for that? You know, what do we know about that?
That's an interesting question. Dr. Miranda, would you like me to address that?
Sure, and I could jump in. And
yeah, it's interesting because we're still waiting, as Dr. Miranda mentioned, on the details of what the intent language means. So basically, the intent is for us to evaluate whether or not there's a different way that we could provide the safety services than to, let's say, contract with the county sheriff or with the local police department to provide those services. Every district will have to look at this in a different way. For us, if we have a good relationship with those, I think as Dr. Miranda said, we're looking at preserving those positive relationships we have between us and our law enforcement community.
Are we going to be looking at some possible having to get together with our attorney to identify how we would do that, being that say the Cone Police Department and our sheriffs come from different entities, different city and county, and for us, are we in a position to be evaluating them as far as performance, or you know?
Well, when I read
how does that look?
Yeah, when I read the word evaluate, I don't think they're talking about the performance of the officers in question. I think what they're talking about is look at the strategies of how we implement those services.
Okay.
And how are there other strategies that we could put into place that could do a similar, cover the services in a similar way without actually having officers on campus. I think that's what they're trying to get at without saying it out loud.
Okay, I could go with that. And just one more, just a comment that district has always had good relationships with our neighboring law enforcement. We've been very fortunate to have many of those who have participated in their particular positions. And I could think of a couple that actually came to our Colton schools, and they have a heart for being here with us, and we're very fortunate to have had them working with our district in that capacity. So, there's been a lot of positives, like Frank had mentioned earlier, and I just wanted to mention that. So, thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Board Member Ibarra. Does anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Jensen?
I do.
Okay, Board Member Adegin?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. It was very thorough and very easy to follow. I did have a question about one of the slides where you talk about classified, and you mentioned specifics. I think custodians and transportation. Is that came down from the state, correct? And is there any reason why instructional aides are not in this group?
We were as surprised as you are that they named specific positions and left out others. And why did the state not go across the board and say no layoffs whatsoever? I will say this, that for the CARES Act funding that we will receive probably this next month, that $6.2 million we told you about, there's an application process for that. And in that application, there's a set of assurances that we have to agree to. And one of those is we will continue to pay our employees, much like this year, if we receive those funds. So that tells me that on the one hand, that means all employees. But in this case, in the specific budget deal, they named those three categories. And so the speculation out there as to why, maybe because of the support services they provide for feeding the kids, for keeping the classrooms clean, for transporting them, that probably has to do more with COVID-19 than anything else. And of course, distance learning with instructional aides, they're going to play a role. And that will be important as well. Our community liaisons, I'm sure they'll still play a role. So it's just a matter of picking those particular categories, probably because of its relation to COVID-19. I'm not sure if Dr. Miranda has a similar take on that as well. Maybe he has some thoughts.
Just to be honest with you, it's sometimes when it's hard to interpret the intent because compromise the deals that are made. So we're trying to pick up or the pieces here at the district. But as we get more information and we go to our budget workshops and scheduled capital advisors being one, they will clarify what the intent of that language is. Okay. And just to be honest with you and frank with you, it sometimes it changes from one day to the next day of what the intent of the legislature was, because we just don't know sometimes.
I understand.
Yeah, so
thank you so much.
I can't really give you more specifics on that, but we're trying to figure it out ourselves. Right. And the county.
Remember, we're flying the plane without the instructions. We're making them up as we go along.
That's right.
Does anyone have any further questions for Mr. Jensen?
I do, Board President Haro, if I may.
Okay, Board Member Flores.
Great presentation. I did hear about the good news, if you will, coming out of Sacramento with respect to a much more moderate budget, I guess, if you will. So I appreciate that. Mr. Jensen, obviously, as you work through the numbers and project out what our fiscal year will look like, you did make a reference to the possibility of needing some bridge financing for cash flow if we have to do something along those lines, which we have in the past. It's been quite some time since we've done it. I'm aware of other school districts that are preparing to do that already. They have to submit that to the auditor controller's office through the county. And so I've seen those requests come through and they actually go through the county, get placed on the county agenda. I would just ask that you keep us abreast of that, those bridge financing options are about finding the sweet spot of borrowing what you need at a good rate, but not overextending yourself, obviously. So we're mindful of that. With respect to AB 77, Dr. Miranda, I appreciate you bringing this up. I have a major concern with this because it was born out of an interest to possibly even prohibit school districts from contracting with law enforcement agencies and even potentially dissolving or prohibiting school district police departments, of which there are a few in our county and several throughout the state. My understanding of that bill, and I've read the language, is it's not asking districts to evaluate the value of working in partnership with law enforcement. It's for the legislature itself to evaluate. They will be doing the ones evaluating whether or not there is value in allowing school districts to partner with law enforcement. In essence, deciding for us. I have a concern with that. I mean, we have to voice our position. This is my opinion early. I'm hoping if there's consensus from this board that we proactively put together perhaps a letter that we can share with our delegation, explaining to them what we currently do, how those partnerships are really beneficial to our students, from not just keeping our kids safe, but the ACTS program, hopefully once it comes back,
Yes.
the CART program,
and
all of the things that our officers and our deputies do with our kids. And it is a fraction, if you think about it, what we spend on those officers, if you will, which I think is great value. It's a fraction of what we spend on education, social services, mental health services, and support services. We all want to try those interventions first, but the officers and the deputies and those departments are part of our educational community. And if they're the right people, like I think we have at Bloomington, Grand Terrace, and Colton, they add so much value to the safety and the well-being and the environment at our school. So for President Haro, if I may, I would like to ask if there would be consensus to try and proactively share some information with our assembly members and state senators that represent our school district so that they know going into those conversations what a success it's been, and encouraging other districts to do the same.
No, I completely agree with you, and especially mentioning programs like CART and the ACTS program. What a tremendous difference those programs have made in many students' lives. Does the board have consensus with Board Member Flores?
Yes.
Absolutely, for me, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Jensen regarding the update?
President Haro, can I address the cash flow question, because I think that's a very important one.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Brought up. I would have to say that because the district had foresight and set aside funds in the beginning fund balance, has positioned this district very well for this kind of an emergency. We started the year with about $44 million. And because of that, the district was able to prepare and adopt a budget that did not include any cuts to positions. It did not have to resort to any interfund or interagency borrowing. So I think that was an excellent foresight on the side of the board, on the part of Dr. Miranda as the CBO, to set those funds aside for this type of emergency. So it is because we've been positioned like that we're able to continue our operations next year without any reductions in our budget.
Okay. So seeing no further questions in regards to the budget, we will move forward. Item 6.5, our ACE update. Mary Garrison.
Good evening, board members, district leaders, and stakeholders. Yes, this is Mary Garrison. I'm filling in today for our president, Christina Parachi. You can all hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. The Association of Colton Educators has a strong desire to keep our voice in the conversation surrounding all matters of education throughout the summer. Thank you for the continued opportunities. We are not just the voice of our members, as we are in constant communication with our students and families. We are their valuable voice as well. Through listening to all entities, the surveys showed that over 60% of our members would like school to be reopened regularly or in some sort of hybrid. Based on the information that the task force received, ACE is supporting the opening of the school year for 2021 with distance learning options in a transitional way until all details are worked out to return to school, whether hybrid or full-time in the classroom. We would like our members and students to be safe when returning to school. We know that teaching during this pandemic has been difficult for our members as well as our families. Changing from classroom teaching to distance learning has been challenging, but our members worked hard and transitioned smoothly. We need to use all efforts to plan for a safe and smooth transition back to the classroom. Our members and students need clean classrooms, adequate materials for all students, PPE, and all the support needed to be working in a safe environment. We can only return back to working with our students face-to-face. We can provide the assurance that the staff and students are safe, that classrooms are clean and disinfected daily for elementary and hourly for secondary, and that all staff have the PPE necessary to conduct their specific job. Lastly, the Black Voice Summit yesterday was a valuable use of our resources. I was able to attend both the AM and the evening events and sat in on the elementary and part of the high school breakout groups. I am so thankful that we have an active African American Parent Advisory Committee and that continuing more opportunities for growth in this area is the most important work that we can do towards equity for all students. I would like to thank you all for your investment and cooperation during these most difficult times. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Moving on, 6.6, we have no CSEA update. And 6.7, we have no MAC update this evening. ROP update. Mr. Ibarra?
Oh, well, at this time, we don't have anything to report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ibarra. Moving on to 7.0, our superintendent's communique. Dr. Miranda.
Thank you, Board President, Board, Cabinet, and members of the audience for being here tonight. And I have a short communique. It's always an honor to come before you and just share the bright spots and that we have in our district. And first, I want to start off, and I said this earlier, but I think I need to say this again to our Colton Joint Unified Task Force Committee and all the stakeholders. Thank you, Mary Garrison, for those words and for ACE's support in the process. And of course, our board and along myself know that they really worked hard and went into in the work and thoughtfulness that went into the recommendation that we presented tonight. And I know that there are just countless meetings that happen and time to analyze the different scenarios that ultimately come up with the best viable, practical, and functional solution at this time to address the needs of our students. And I'll just say that we can't get to blooms and the rigor without addressing the safety needs and the Maslow needs of our students first. That's really important. Ultimately, like I said, the safety of our students is to learn in a safe environment was really the driving force behind all this decision making at this point. But again, we want to transition as fast as possible so that we get our students back. As a former teacher, I can only tell you that our teachers miss their students, need their students, love their students, and they did an outstanding job, I think, in the distance learning environment to adapt, to do the best that they could when we started to meet the needs of the students. And so again, and then last but not in terms of the task force, you know, and I apologize. I don't want to embarrass her again. Amanda Corden, just thank you for your leadership and for leading this monumental task. So moving on, and I'm just, the next slide, please. There we go. The student voice, the Black Student Voice Forum that happened this like yesterday, were just amazing. And I participated and in the 10 o'clock session and then the 6 o'clock. Just we talk about equity. The most need right now is our Black African male students. We just have to do better. But I want to thank our district leadership for hosting the first ever Black Student Voice Forum. I think other districts are taking note of what we're doing here and the way we're leading here in Colton. And I've had conversations with quite a bit of our Black administrators and them telling the stories during the sessions are just heartbreaking, and especially the students when you hear the stories, and especially the elementary students, the first, second graders is just incredible to hear them. I know we focus on the high school students, but our elementary kids are, as a former elementary principal, it just warms my heart when they speak and they talk and they have no filter. So they just really touches your heart. So the two sessions, you know, allowed our students to participate and voice their concerns and share their stories, like I said, and we got to listen. And so I know I was just listening to the students and to the adults that shared and trying to learn before I lead. And so the guiding questions, the facilitators were amazing. Mr. Williford, Ms. Hampton, Ms. Durham, Ms. Noel, all of you did a phenomenal job of facilitating the conversations. I was there listening to all of you. And I hope we can continue with these forums for our students so that they give them an outlet. And as a superintendent, I'm certainly going to continue to push this and do it in a safe environment because it is scary. It's scary out there. I've you know, worked with students all my life, and I know how they feel, and so it's really important that we provide that safe environment for them, opportunity. So I would like to extend a special thanks to all the students that are out there who you took the time. You were so courageous in sharing your experience and being vulnerable. The open and honest the discussions that took place were meaningful and they meant a lot to me. So thank you again. And I hope we can continue. And I'm just so proud of all of you as the superintendent of you guys speaking up. And I can't wait to see you. And at some point, hopefully one day even give you a hug if it's possible. I hope we get there. Just thank you real quick to Antonio Castro, Camille Bus, Nairi Clark, Regina Clausel, Danny, Dr. D, Dare, Dolores Curry, Diara Durham, Tiffany Hampton, Syed Hire, Tanisha Jackson, Missy Kingston. I'm going to leave somebody off the list, but I have to say it. Leslie Maldonado, Felicia Noel, Katie Orlov, Shane Pennell, Mike Williford, Tabrisha Lang, Dr. Peterson, Rochelle Robinson, and our guest speaker, Hardy Brown, who did a phenomenal job. And wow, I mean, what a great speaker, who is a board member from the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, who did guest speaking. Thank you to everybody on that. And then the last thing that I have tonight is summer break is here. So I want to wish everybody happy 4th of July. I truly believe we still live in the greatest country in the world. We're blessed to be here in this country with the opportunities. And I want to reiterate to all of you to take time with your families and to get some rest, do some self-care. You know, these are unprecedented times, and we've been doing the best to navigate through them. It's not easy, and we all need time to decompress, to take care of ourselves, and take care of our families. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for all you do, to all the staff in CJUSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda, for your superintendent's communique. Moving on to 8.0, our board member comments. Board Member Ibarra.
Okay, thank you, Pat. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank Amanda for and the committee for their hard work and for their report earlier today. And also want to thank Mr. Jensen for his report and answering my questions. And I thank him for that too. And just like Bertha said, it was very understandable, and I truly appreciate that as well. As I was listening to some of our board members talk about reopening our schools, a couple of them, well, everybody made some really good points, and one of the ones that I just want to talk a little bit about or just mention really quickly is the fact that, you know, when our students start at the beginning of August with the distant learning, and I know that it's going to create some problems, because I was on the board back in the day when we had to implement the track system, and I remember all the parents who had difficulty with that because all of a sudden they had to find babysitters, and I understand what Dan was talking about earlier. And it becomes really, really difficult. But unfortunately, I think that we are in a situation where we have, you know, probably not as much control over the outcome of COVID-19 and how it's proceeding, with the hope that by that time it would start subsiding. And, you know, we all pray for that. But that being said, I was wondering if, as we take a look at the distant learning and also taking a look at the rigor and the importance of our students getting the proper assistance, is there any way that we can start taking a look at providing our students with an additional homework assistance, maybe in the afternoon and more toward the evening hours? Have a little bit of flexibility when the parents get home from work, that they can maybe access a hotline that we could put together or something similar, so that if their student and their children have difficulty understanding the homework and the work given, they could actually have someone they could talk to. Is that a possibility that we can do and work on? Because talking about us providing the you know, the service to our students and to our families, I think it's going to be important. This is unusual times, obviously, and I think that there should be some way that we as a district can assist our students who may be struggling with not understanding the coursework and have additional assistance. And I don't know if we can put something together that we can actually provide them. And if the parents need to have someone to contact if they don't know how to do the homework or understand the coursework, that they could have an avenue to make contact with. And I know that our teachers oftentimes make themselves very available, but there's times where, you know, they also have their limits. And I was just thinking about this as a couple of our board members were sharing some concerns. So I was wondering if that's something that we could maybe think about. It would be providing an additional service and maybe a hotline, so to speak, for our students and our parents to reach out to people that can help them with the work that they're being given. Obviously, as all of us are experiencing being on web as an example, you know, it's nothing like being there in person and us meeting normally. And because of that, we limit what we want to say. We you know, we don't get a lot of the opportunities that we probably would take opportunity to talk more or ask certain questions. And it's different. So I could only imagine how the students are when they are online with their instructor. It's a lot easier to lose focus, but and for us to be able to maybe give them that additional tutoring, maybe it's a good word I could use. Uh, it could be something that we might be able to provide tutoring hours or extra hours by their instructor, just in case, so that the parents know that they have opportunity after hours to contact somebody that can help them. So hopefully I'm making sense, and might be something that we can consider. Um, does anybody have any comment on that?
Oh, yes, I was going to comment, Mr. Ibarra, that I certainly we think we can look into that. We are partnering with our ACES folks think together. We're part of the task force, but we can definitely look into that because you're right. Even though teachers are going to be offering office hours and more opportunities for students for them to connect with the students, we probably need to look into something like that to further support the students. Great point. And so definitely something that I think we will and look into and provide more information to the board as soon as we collect it.
Thank you, Frank, for mentioning that. And just one more thing, I just want to add to um, something that Pat mentioned earlier, the fact that I think that it would probably behoove us to get our teachers into their classroom as soon as we possibly can, so that they can be in their educational environment as they do the distant learning. And I think that that would also provide each teacher with the necessary tools that they have there and in their classrooms uh, to be able to take it to the next level, so to speak. I could only imagine if you're home, you may not have that one textbook or that one assignment and available that you would like to teach. So, you know, as we move forward in cleansing our classrooms, we probably, I think it would be a good idea, and I thank Pat for bringing this up, uh, so that we can get our teachers in their environment as soon as we possibly can. So those are my comments for today, and I just want to thank everybody, and also as Summer's here. And I agree with what Frank said earlier. If you can, it's kind of, I'm not going to say humorous, but, we've all been doing a little extra resting for the last few months, more rest than I want to be doing. But, take some time, and, it's a great time to be with your families, and take some time and prepare for August, because once August comes, it's going to be a whirlwind. I could see that already coming. So thank you to everybody. And like always, it's good to be with you. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Board Member Ibarra. Board Member Sandoval.
I just wanted to say thank you to Amanda. It was a really great presentation, and to Mr. Jensen. It was also really great and easy to understand. And based on the kids, well, I do want their safety. And we're here for our kids. And thank you, everyone, and have a great summer.
Thank you, Board Member Sandoval. Board Member Fuentes.
Thank you, Board President. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. Well, coming out this evening, for showing up virtually this evening. I want to thank everyone for being here and having the opportunity to speak this evening. Also, I'm hoping I was able to get a microphone, so I'm hoping that people can hear me better. Thank you to Amanda. What an awesome presentation. I want to please let the team know. I know there's a lot of people on that one page. Please let them know that we really appreciate all their hard work and what they've done to bring this plan together. Earlier today, I was talking to Dr. Miranda, and as I talked to other districts around San Bernardino County, I think we're a couple of steps or more steps ahead than many other districts. And we are working hard for our community, for our students, for our staff, and making sure that the safety of them all is there as we work together. I also want to thank Rick Jensen for a great presentation. Thank you for all the updates that you're doing. It's great to see that we're going to keep some money there, and we're going to move on with that. So I appreciate that very much. I also had the opportunity yesterday to be part of the Black Student Voice. I had the opportunity to listen, and it was great to hear all of these stories and all of the things that are happening. And it was also a bit concerning, a couple things that we were able to hear. My daughter was on this Black Student Voice event, and she did get to speak, and she did speak from the heart. She was actually sitting next to me when we were talking, when she was talking, and she got very emotional, very, very, very touched. And she'll be a senior next year at Bloomington High School, and I've seen her grow very much to this young lady who is very passionate for the community, for the well-being of everyone. So I was very, very proud of her yesterday, and I just want to thank everyone that were part of the panel. I want to thank Ms. Areguin, that was also there present. I don't know if anybody else was of our board was there. I want to thank you for also being there. And to all of our teachers and staff and parents and students that were present. I wasn't able to make it to the 6 o'clock session. I had another family commitment, but I heard it was a great session also. So thank you for sharing, and I'm hoping that we can continue with this Student Voice Forum. Let me look at my notes here. I just wanted to say happy 4th of July. Enjoy your time, enjoy your summer break. This has been a very, as we learn, as we go, we've said it many times, and I'll say it again, building the plane as we fly it. And I appreciate everyone, our executive cabinet, our stakeholders, everyone, our community for coming out and always voicing their concerns also. And we're here to listen. We're here to we're here always to listen, and we have to have that. I guess the Lord made me with some big ears for some reason so that I can listen really good. And I always try to make that a priority, is to listen and try to do the best for our students and for our community. And I just want to thank you for that opportunity. So have a great summer break. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your time. And before I move on, I just also want to ditto what Mr. Ibarra said about the homework hotline. That's a great idea. I think that if we can open something up like that, and even a homework chat line where it's an opportunity for the student to ask for help, that would be an awesome thing. I know Colton has an app. Maybe we can add another icon into that app that says homework help. So it's another suggestion, but I am all for that. Thank you, Mr. Ibarra, for bringing that up. And just wanted to leave you with a quote this evening, and it says, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." Malcolm X. Have a great summer. See you guys in August.
Thank you, Board Member Fuentes. Board Member Areguin?
Hi, yes. I want to just echo what Mr. Ibarra said and Ms. Harrell said about getting the teachers' classrooms ready as soon as possible. They had a very abrupt ending to their school year where they just basically left one day and they were not able to return. So I think emotionally and mentally the teachers would benefit from that, from having that time. So I am totally on board with their ideas of making it a priority and get the teachers' classrooms ready. That's one thing. The Black Forum, the Student Voice, I participated in both. I didn't say much. It's amazing how much we learn when we listen, and we just listen and to what our babies are telling us. And yeah, Mr. Fuentes is right. We did hear some interesting conversation, interesting stories that that could, you know, we need to make sure that things like that don't happen in our district or anywhere for our students. I was very impressed with our speaker, with the speaker. At one point, he raised some shoes, and he said these shoes were worn by slaves, and the shoes were old and they're tattered, and that touched me. And I'm thinking, our kid, that's what our kids need. Our kids need to experience things like that. So I would love if we can invite them back, let him talk to our kids and show them, let him share his experiences and his knowledge. And I know he has a lot of memorabilia, a lot of antique things that he collects. I would love to have them come back. And I just want to say that on another note is the tremendous responsibility that we as board members have taken on. And you know, it really, you know, we need to make sure that our kids are safe, that our staff is safe, but we also have the responsibility to ensure that our students get the best education possible, even during these times. And I do have all the confidence in the staff, in Dr. Miranda's and cabinet. His whole cabinet works. They work like clockwork. Everything just kind of, they know their roles and they know how to make things happen. So I just want to say that I have all the confidence in the world in Dr. Miranda and the whole cabinet. I also appreciate the way, ACE and CSEA work together to solve problems and to come up with the best solutions possible. So I really appreciate that too. With that, I just want to thank everyone for the year. It was a learning experience. And Christina Parachi said something a few board meetings away, where she said it would be nice to go dark for a while, for a few days. And I love that idea. I think our teachers need it, our principals need it, our administrators need it, to just, maybe, 4th of July is coming around, and, take time to enjoy, relax, and get re-energized. With that, I thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Board Member Aragin. Board Member Thoring Ojeda.
Thank you. My first comment this evening is once again to thank our district leadership for meeting this challenging time in the way that they have, both instructionally and fiscally. I appreciated both presentations tonight. Your expertise truly is invaluable to us as board members, and we rely on the things that you let us know to make the best decisions for our kids. We know that's what your intent is, and we can follow that with all the information that you provide to us. My second comment is about our transition to school starting August 5th. As a former teacher and principal, I think about that first day of school and the kids coming with their jitters, and how's that going to look this year? I mean, it makes me really sad. I know the teachers are really sad about that as well. To meet your teacher on the first day on the internet, it's an interesting thought. My concern is, will every single student, how are we going to guarantee that every single student will know that how to connect that first day? Because that first day is so important. I just hope that we have a way of maybe teachers making phone calls to every single student, or somehow reaching out and making sure that every child and every family knows that it's their responsibility to meet that first day, because that's so critical to how the school year will continue. I guess that being a safe and smooth transition, not just to this procedure, the process, but to this school year. They're going to need support, and whatever kind of support is needed, I'm sure the committee has thought about that and are ready to provide. I am concerned about when we do have kids coming back to school. One of the issues we need to look at is, I know the CDC has said kids need to wear masks, and maybe that's already been a decision you've made at the district level, but I can't see little elementary kids doing that. I think it's more of a safety issue having them on, and I'm really worried about the mental and psychological issues with all this for kids, not just coming back to school, but for families at home. And I'm hoping that our mental health individuals are able to reach out to families, because as you listen to reports on the news, there's a lot of things happening in homes right now that are not exactly the most healthy for children and families to experience. So I think that's a huge thing that we need to be looking at in the future when kids come back. And I don't know how we can meet anything now, but I hope our agencies are able to reach out to families who are in need, because I know there's a great need out there for a lot of our kids and parents. My third thing, I too participated in the Black Student Voice Forum yesterday. I was so taken back by our little kids. As an elementary person, I listened to the elementary children. And when I heard one little girl say it was scary listening to the news, it just broke my heart, because as adults, we look at it and we understand as much as we can. But to think about little ones in elementary school and to come on and say it was scary, it's, again, there's a mental health issue coming that way, and it's not going to just go away. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us. For me, it's an opportunity for growth, for understanding. When I too, thank you, Mrs. Arreguin, for bringing this up. When I heard Hardy Brown talk about shoes, that just was such a visual reminder of their heritage. And I think we can learn from that, because I hadn't really thought about it in that sense, but just a couple of generations ago, that was the reality for so many of our families. I would totally support I know we have to get into the school year, but I do believe that our entire group of all of our employees would benefit by listening to someone like him and a professional development to have a better understanding of a culture. We do a lot of cultural studies in school, and I think this is one that, because of what's happening in our world right now, or United States right now, it's certainly appropriate to spend time giving our employees more knowledge in the area that affects our children, and many of our children, on a daily basis. I also want to say thank you to Mike Williford for the Black Community Coalition Roundtable. That too was a great opportunity to listen, to try and understand and develop understanding, and just to have more education into a culture that I don't know that much about. And I was grateful to be part of that as a listener. I mentioned the mental health concerns. I don't know if I know we have on the internet place where parents can connect, but I'm wondering if when we send the return information letters or whatever, we make sure to include something about our mental health support services that are possible for families. That might be very well received by a number of folks. Let's see. Again, safety is key for whatever we're doing and however we transition back. I understand the need for teachers wanting to go back into school. I foresee teachers showing up and kids showing up on campus. I hope we have closed campuses so we don't have issues with kids on campus and they're not supposed to be there, and then parents having a concern about that, and looking like we're not enforcing COVID-19 restrictions. And with that, I would, I guess, just say happy summer to everyone. I agree with let's go dark for a while because I think, as Mrs. Aragine said, everyone needs that, and it would be a good thing for everyone to have some downtime before we started on a new school year. I know our cabinet certainly has earned that and deserves that, and probably would welcome that. No more phone calls for a while, guys. So thank you very much, everyone, and I miss all of you, and I'm looking forward to the day when we can be back together again. So thank you so much. Have a great summer and be safe, everyone.
Thank you, Board Member Thoring Ojeda. Board Member Flores.
Thank you. I don't have many comments tonight. I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work that went in today's presentations with respect to the budget, restarting school. So I know a lot of work goes into that. I appreciate the feedback, appreciate the board's dialogue participation. Love the idea of a homework hotline. Obviously, I would suggest that we have access for Spanish language and bilingual services with respect to that, because that's incredibly important in our district. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for the hard work. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the summer because it's not going to last too long.
Thank you, Board Member Flores. I just have a few, just very few comments. The first thing, I know I said it before, I do want to thank again the Back to School Task Force Committee. The list of people who participated, it was quite lengthy. Like I said, it was a mixture of our ACSEA and our management, and I want to just say thank you for all of your thoughtful time and dedication to that committee. It is greatly appreciated. I also want to thank all those who were involved in our Black Student Voice Forum. I participated in the 6 p.m. I was in the high school for a while. I checked out elementary, and I ended in the middle school forum. And I was so impressed with the students who spoke, as well as the adults of their the situations that they have personally felt, the way they have brought up their children. And I spoke as not as an African American, but as a Hispanic in the way I was brought up and things to look out for. But it was interesting how these our middle school kids, those are the kids we worry about sometimes the most because they're right at that middle stage. And, it's a transition for them. The hormones are starting to raise and all these different things that we look at for middle school. But the kids who were on there and who spoke, they were very, very thorough with what they spoke. They were so enlightening. The one young lady who spoke said that we need to have more education taught in our school system about Black history and Black contributions, not just during Black History Month. Because if we start teaching our students at a younger age, meaning elementary, they will grow up better having known that history encompasses all types of people and the contributions they've made. She even gave the example about of inventors. A Black gentleman invented the three-way traffic light. A Black gentleman invented the refrigeration trucks. A Black woman invented the ironing board. So she was very thorough, and I really appreciated her comments and appreciated everyone who put it together and who was there to guide our students. And I look forward to continuing, as my colleague said, forums, not just for our Black students, but for all students to have a voice. Because for those of us who've participated in the talks over at Joe Baca Middle School with those middle school kids, our kids have a lot to say, and they are so intelligent, and we need to listen to their voice because some of their ideas are phenomenal, and we need to learn from them. The last thing I want to do, I want to say thank you to our district for their unfailing support of our mental health component. our district has gone out of their way in the fact that recognizing how important mental health is to the growth of our students. You know, if our students have problems at home, they're not going to learn well. That's the bottom line. And I want to just thank our district for the support that they do of our mental health programs. Antonio, and I know Amanda, you are over our mental health component. Just all of the different things we do to support mental health. I have a very good friend who is in another school district, and they just cut all their mental health professionals. And I can't understand that decision with district learning and COVID and all of the ramifications that this pandemic has caused, how a district can cancel their mental health program. It is needed now more than ever. I just want to tell you all to have a happy summer, relax, stay safe. And my quote this evening, I think, I question, I design, I create, I struggle, I collaborate, I try, I solve, I invent, I reflect, I learn. We are all learning right now. We are all, this is like, you know, for all of us who are involved with school districts right now, this is learning for all of us. God bless you all. And for my board members and executive cabinet, I will see you in closed session.
We're back. Wish I could sing or had some special entertaining talents.
Everybody can sing.
Sing well. How's that?
I was going to let you all listen to the fireworks show by my house. It descended.
Oh, you should have shared it on the screen.
Where do you live, Rick?
I'm in Fontana. I'm on
Okay.
in Heritage.
Okay.
Is there anybody still on YouTube?
Let me check. There are currently 36 concurrent viewers.
So Shane, how many was it? What was the most amount that we had on there?
So our max on YouTube was 286, and I think I saw about 100 on WebEx.
Yeah, I think I saw about 102 on the WebEx.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big meeting.
Can you fit all those people in the boardroom?
No, but we try sometimes.
Just don't call the fire marshal.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good testament to the power that these platforms can bring.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a testament to the topic tonight.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, absolutely. It's
absolutely.
never been this popular before.
Right.
Are you saying they weren't all here for my budget update?
At least half of them were.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure everyone always wondered what we do in closed session. This is it.
Riveting.
So are we still on the air or are we in our little chat?
We are on the air. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know.
Yeah.
Let's say anything colorful here. No, in radio, they call this dead air. Nobody's talking, no music.
Need some good 80s music.
I'm with you.
Shane, Katie asked that maybe you could play the on hold music from our system.
Hmm.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It depends on the music.
There was actually a one of those popular blogs, not blogs. The heck was it? It was one of those popular podcasts from NPR where they talked about the origination of the hold music from Cisco. It's like one of the most popular songs based on the number of times it gets played, but the guy that made it doesn't get paid anything for it.
Oh, he got gypped.
Yes. Oh, I think we have Ingrid. Are you there?
Yes, I've been talking to myself this whole time.
Oh, sorry about that. I just
Hi, Miss
messaged.
Monsterman.
Hi, Joanne.
And I see Pat's
Monsterman. I
coming
think
back.
back in.
Oh, they're coming back.
Mrs. Harlow, can you hear us?
Great.
It's harder to entertain ourselves online.
Am I on there, Shane?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Okay.
We're back.
Let me know when everyone's back.
Okay.
Here, Joanne.
Miss Adigin, are you back?
Yes, I think she's in.
Yes, I'm here.
Miss Haro is back. Mr. Fuentes?
I'm here.
Mrs. Sandoval?
Here.
Mr. Ibarra?
I'm here.
Ms. Doreen Ojeda?
I'm here.
Mr. Flores?
I'm here.
Great.
Okay, everyone's back. The board is back from closed session. Moving on to 10.0, public session. Personnel public employee appointment, Government Code 54957. The board took action to amend action item 10.1 to remove certificated regular staff athletic director, Colton High School. On a motion by board member Thoring Ojeda and seconded by board member Fuentes, the board approved the amendment as followed. On a 7-0 vote, personnel public employee, Government Code 54957, certificated, 1 regular staff, science, biological science teachers, Grand Terrace High School. 1 classified coach, head varsity cross-country co-ed. And with that, we are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Take care, everybody.
See you again and
Stay
be
safe.
safe.
Good night.
Have a safe one. God bless you guys.
Everybody.
Bye bye.